Periods shouldn't hurt. That is something that I only learned this month. Hi, I'm Megan. I'm 20 years old and I've just had to take a year out of university because of my suspected endometriosis and adenomyosis. We do not talk about women's health enough, and that needs to change. So I thought I would make a video on my menstrual health journey so far. I've posted a few on my TikTok, which I can link down below, but I just wanted to talk in this video about my endometriosis journey for diagnosis, getting the Mirena coil, pelvic ultrasounds, things like that. Why is it still a taboo topic to talk about women's health? Like the other day, I couldn't make a commitment because I just had the coil put in. So I texted the person and I said, like, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to be able to go. I've just had the coil put in. I thought I would feel better, but I feel like death. And I told my mum, and my mum was like, I can't believe you said that. And I was like, why? And she said, because like, that's TMI. How is that TMI, mate? You would tell someone if you broke your ankle. Like, I don't know. Why is it TMI? Because it's my vagina? I'm sorry. Let's get comfy. I have today, unsponsored, these glow kombuchas with benefits. Ginseng and vitamin C, cucumber and mint flavour that I got reduced at Holland & Barrett. And I thought it was going to be frickin' gross. Why is it delicious? Why does it taste like a mojito? When you look into endometriosis, adenomyosis, PCOS, stuff like that, you find that, well, what I've found so far is that one of the main things that people suggest and recommend is anti-inflammatory foods and probiotics. So I am trying to eat more and drink more gut-friendly stuff at the moment. I used to be really good at it, but I made way too much kimchi and I just felt like I was eating kimchi with every meal, and it just put me off kimchi, which put me off sauerkraut, which put me off all my ferments. And I'm also lactose intolerant. Another one you may not have known is that dairy is a big trigger for endometriosis pain. I didn't know that. I thought I was lactose intolerant for like 5 years, but it turns out it just makes endometriosis cramps worse. So anyway, I wish you could see my like cute desk setup, but I'm sat in the way. I had to make some notes because, like I say, 5 years is a long time. There is so much medical gaslighting. Like, I feel like in the last 5 years, every single time I've been to the doctor wanting something, they've sent me away without, to be honest. And it makes you feel like you don't know your body. And that is not true, girl. So I wanted to make this video because you're not alone, you're not wrong, and you know your body better than anybody else does. So in this video, I want to go over symptoms, medication, trying to get a diagnosis, and my journey so far. This is how I first found out that I had suspected endometriosis. So I started my period when I was 13 or 14. I had like a pretty heavy flow, but only light cramping. Like it was completely manageable. I could just go about my everyday life as if nothing had happened. And then when I was 15, I just woke up and I felt so sick. Like, I felt so sick. I felt like I was going to throw up, and I did. And over the span of 3 days, it was just getting worse. Like, I couldn't go to school because I was waking up, throwing up. I was in so much pain. I couldn't really move. I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't even eat without throwing up. And then the pain got so bad that I was just passing in and out of consciousness. So I go to A&E and they do like scans, ultrasounds, whatever, to figure out what's going on. And they told me that it was my period and that I needed to go and see a GP when I was better. And they gave me some painkillers, tranexamic acid, and anti-nausea medication. And I felt better. When I went to the GP, they said that it was suspected endometriosis and that there was nothing that they could do. They didn't recommend going down the route of diagnosis, which annoys me because if they had suggested that at the time, I could have that diagnosis now. But it's 5 years later and I'm still having the same issues. Instead, they just put me on the pill. They obviously also did the classic, well, when you get pregnant, it goes away. Shut up. So the first pill that they put me on, like, I felt so depressed. But obviously I was 15, so, and I also do have depression. So I don't know if there was a pill, but either way I came off it because I just was not feeling good. And when I came off it, it happened again. I was throwing up. I was really ill. I had to go to the hospital. But this time when I went, the lady who saw me refuse to treat me because she thought that was on drugs. And I was trying to tell her, like, no, baby girl, like, this is my period, like, this is what happens. But she was adamant that I was high as a kite. And it took hours and hours to get seen, and I was in like the most pain of my life, throwing up everywhere. It was horrific. Like, it was so bad. You know when you're so unwell that nothing is embarrassing anymore. I was like lying on the floor of A&E, just crying and screaming. I had no shame. I thought I was going to die. Anyway, that was probably one of the worst experiences of my life and the start of medical gaslighting, because this lady was so convinced that I was on drugs. And then when I told her, so she made me do a drug test, which came back clean. But that wasn't enough for her. She was now convinced that I was pregnant. So I ended up waiting hours and hours without any treatment, even though it was on my medical records that this is what happens when I get a period. I was in here a few months ago, just because she didn't believe me. Sometimes I find it harder with female doctors than male doctors. I'm not sure if it's because they think like, oh, I have cramps, like, and it's not this bad, and my cramps hurt. But sometimes it genuinely is harder to get taken seriously by a female doctor, which is so freaking sad, to be honest. Anyway, after that horrible ordeal, I was put on a new pill. I took Desogestrel 75 micrograms, and I have been taking that bad boy ever since. I take it non-stop. I took it non-stop without any breaks. So I didn't experience any bleeding for 3 to 4 years. Honestly, this was ideal for me, to be honest, because I wasn't experiencing anywhere near the same level of pain. Now, one of the symptoms that I had, which confused me because I had it for so long. The problem with a lot of these symptoms is that because I had them for so long, I couldn't tell what was normal and what wasn't. But I have cramps every single day of my life, which when I say it out loud, obviously isn't normal. But because it was happening every single day, it was like normalized in my mind. But every day I have cramps. And in my head, I'm telling myself I'm lactose intolerant, so it could be that. But even when I don't eat dairy, I have cramps. When I wake up in the morning, I have cramps. I also have really bad back pain, just all the time. I remember going to the GP and telling them I had really bad back pain, and they referred me to a specialist, and the specialist just gave me a video to watch and a pamphlet for chronic pain. Thank you. That is probably part of my menstrual problems as well. So that worked for me for about 3 years. And then I went to see the doctor because I didn't want to be on the pill for the rest of my life. And at this point, I was based in Derby. So I was in the hospitals that are grouped together in the East Midlands. I didn't realise this, but hospitals in different regions have different procedures that they follow, which becomes relevant later. So in Derby, I ended up going to the doctor and saying, like, I don't want to be on the pill for the rest of my life. I want to get an endometriosis diagnosis. And I was expecting them to shut me down, to be honest. And he said, yeah, okay, no worries. I'll put a referral through now for a specialist. Wow, easiest thing in the world. Except for the fact that the waiting list was over a year long. And in that time, I moved to Cornwall full time. So I had to transfer GPs, and in transferring GPs, I lost all of that progress that I'd made with the doctor back at home, which doesn't sound like a lot because all he did was give me a referral, but I ended up losing that referral. So I came to the GP down here and I said, hey, like, my doctor back at home gave me a referral to a specialist. I just wanted to check that had been passed on down here. And she said, no, sorry, we do things differently here. In order to get a referral, you have to do an STD test and a pelvic ultrasound. Easy peasy, okay? Easy peasy. The issue is, whilst that's the main takeaway of that conversation, talking to this doctor about getting a referral was like fighting for my rights, because why are they so against seeing a specialist? Like, why are they so against it? This whole time she's telling me, like, there's no point in getting a diagnosis, the pill is the only treatment, you're better off just on the pill, like, even if you get a diagnosis, you're just going to be on the pill. It's my fucking body. How am I, like, I'm always perplexed as to how they are okay treating symptoms of a disease that they didn't even know I have. I've been on the pill for 5 years to treat this medical issue, and they don't even know what the medical issue is. It might have gone by now. Like, winds me up. Like, I feel like this is an overriding problem with the NHS sometimes. I'm super grateful for them, but it doesn't mean that I can't point out faults where they lie. And they are not keen on diagnosis. And whilst that might be due to waiting times, it's not the way that I think the system should work. We need to stop putting band-aids on wounds that need treating, to be honest. I was like, fine, babe, whatever. So they signed me up for a pelvic ultrasound. In Cornwall, these are requirements to get a referral to an endometriosis clinic, and I believe it's the same in different parts of the country as well. Luckily, it wasn't in Derby, but where I am it is. I was really nervous for this pelvic ultrasound, to be honest, because I had never heard of it, and the closest that I had encountered to anything like that is my mum's colonoscopy, which sounded like fucking hell. And I was thinking, I don't want that. And I was so scared, but I wanted this diagnosis. So I went, and there's actually no need to be scared. I'll try and describe what it's like. But you go into the room. It's normally like quite dim light, like almost romantic. I've had 2 now. And there's normally like a female doctor and a chaperone, who's like a nurse. And you take off your trousers and underwear and lie down. And they have a long but thin tube that they use, and it gets covered in like the ultrasound gel. And for me, it didn't hurt, and I think because the people who perform this procedure like do it every single day. They know what they're doing. You have your knees up and they just put it in and they just start fishing around. Like, they don't move it too much. The most that I felt was a bit of pressure and discomfort, but there was no pain. Like, it wasn't painful for me. There's no need to be scared. Whilst I'm editing this, there's one thing that I want to add is that I do know people who weren't allowed to do the pelvic ultrasound if they hadn't, like, had sex via penetration before. And there's also no need to be uncomfortable because these ladies have seen it all, you know? Like, your puss is not the scariest thing they're gonna see today. The nurse that I was given was a bit of a pig. She had, like, no compassion for the fact that I was 18, I was there alone, and I was really scared that someone was about to shove a long stick up my vagina. And she kept going, "Why are you here? You know that we can't diagnose endometriosis through a scan." Yeah, I know. Oh yeah. So with these pelvic ultrasounds, they don't actually show endometriosis unless it is like seriously deep in the tissue. They don't really show anything. The reason that they make you do them is to rule out anything else. Like, think that they show PCOS and they show adenomyosis. They show signs of adenomyosis, but it's more to rule out other conditions. And this lady kept going, "Why are you here? Sorry, I just don't understand why they've sent you here. I just don't." Darling, me neither. And she just wasn't very nice or compassionate about the fact that, like, you're angry at me and you're about to ram a stick up my vagina. Like, please relax, because I'm not right now. Anyway, obviously they didn't find anything. And then I had to complete an STD test, which I did. And then I never heard back from the doctors. So in my head, I just assumed that that was it. The referral was sent off and I was done. But I never chased them up about it because my period was steady. I just started university. I just started a new job. Like, honestly, I was overwhelmed. And if you are trying to get a diagnosis, trying to deal with the doctors about your endometriosis, you'll understand that it's almost like a full-time job. The amount of times that you have to contact a doctor or the ultrasound hub or chase up a referral, and the amount of appointments that you have to organise, it can be really exhausting, to be honest. And at the time, I was doing okay. My pill was doing its job, and I thought I can afford to wait a few years until I am not at university and working and this overwhelmed. Mistake. Anyway, in May of this year, my period started, to be honest. I originally thought that it was breakthrough bleeding because, in fairness to my body, I hadn't had a period in 3 years. Like, it's got to come out at some time. So I just kind of left it, to be honest. And I had constant bleeding. And then maybe after a week or two, I had a day off, and then the spotting would come, and then it would start back again. And every time the spotting came, I thought it would end. And I put it off for too long. And after about 3 months, I went to the doctor. I was really scared about getting fobbed off again, to be honest. And I was right to be, because they told me to double up on my pill, which did nothing. And now here is where I would like to say something should have happened. I think that I should have gone to the doctor, told them that I'd been on my period for 2 months, and that's where they should have gone, that's not right. Let's figure out what's wrong. But instead, I was told to double up on my pill and get the fuck out of the office. And this is another of like, you're treating the symptom, but you don't even know what the problem is. So I doubled up on my pill, nothing happened, and now I had to start my year abroad. I very quickly realised that it was affecting my mood. I literally cannot believe the change in person. Like, I can't believe how different I was, and I am. I think a combination of the fact that one of the biggest and like one of the symptoms that affected me the most from the endometriosis was chronic fatigue. I was exhausted all of the time, like all of the time. I could get out of bed in the morning, have breakfast, and I thought I was going to fall back asleep again. Like, I was so exhausted, I just couldn't really do anything. And that didn't help with the low mood. Like, the low mood was immense. I was just crying all of the time. I was so miserable. I felt so isolated. A combination of this definitely affected my mood, but I was also moving house, moving abroad, changing literally everything in my life. And I'd been on my period for 4 months. Like, everything was just culminating, and I was so miserable. I didn't want to spend time with people. I couldn't bring myself to go out and do things that normally I would find fun. I remember Max, my boyfriend, was like, you need to leave the house. So we went to Lidl, and I just cried, like, all the way to Lidl and all the way back again on like a beautiful summer's day. And I remember thinking, like, if I can't be happy now on this beautiful day, I'm never going to be happy again. Girl, you're so dramatic. But it really did feel like that, to be honest. Anyway, when I got to Amsterdam, I was like, I literally cannot do this year abroad like this. So I contacted the GP and I said, baby, I'm still on my period. And they said that they couldn't give me an over-the-phone appointment. Bear this information in mind. They said they couldn't give me an over-the-phone appointment and to use healthcare there. And this might seem underprepared, but I want you to also remember that I didn't choose to go to Amsterdam. I was allocated Amsterdam by my university, but I didn't have good enough healthcare to go to the doctor. So my healthcare literally covered like serious emergencies, like my foot getting cut off. It didn't cover ongoing healthcare problems. It didn't cover non-emergencies. It didn't cover mental health. Like, it literally covered nothing because it was so expensive. It was like £130 a month to see an online GP. I'm actually just not paying that. Like, I can't. I decided I would just try and get on with it and book an appointment when I came back to visit in September, which I did. Remember how earlier they wouldn't give me a telephone appointment? They said that I needed an in-person appointment. I go in September and they tell me that I cannot have an in-person appointment and I can only have a telephone appointment because the GP has triaged it as general non-urgent. I said, like, fuck you. Like, I was just so annoyed, to be honest, because that means I could have had this appointment all along. Like, why did you make me wait? Whatever. Because they said that it was non-urgent, they also gave me an appointment in over a week, which meant that my appointment was for the day before I left. When I had this stupid telephone appointment for the GP, he said, this is urgent, like, this is really bad. How have you been bleeding for 4 months? He booked me in for some tests. We need to get you referred to a specialist, so I'm going to give you an urgent referral to an ultrasound. I said bussing. So because it was all marked as urgent, I ended up having like a pelvic examination the next morning right before my flight. But I couldn't do the ultrasound until I was next back in the country. When my appointment letter came through for that urgent ultrasound, I discovered that it was in Bude. I am in Falmouth, okay? I can't drive. It is 4 hours away on public transport for me to get to fucking Bude. I was flabbergasted, to say the least. I literally couldn't believe it. And I just had to do it because there were no other appointments. When I went to change and rebook the appointment, the earliest one was in December. I go back to Amsterdam, I'm on my exchange, and I'm just not well. Like, I am miserable. I am bleeding all of the time. I am exhausted. I can't go out and do anything. I don't feel well enough to socialise. Like, I'm not having a good time. I dropped out of my year abroad and I decided to come back to the UK and sort this out for good. So I contacted my GP on the 3rd of November and they gave me an appointment for the 21st of November because it was non-urgent. Why is this non-urgent? I'm so sorry. Like, why? Is it because I've been bleeding for, at this point, I think I've been bleeding for about 6 months. Is it because I've been bleeding for 6 months? I can just bleed for a few weeks more. Like, was that their mindset? I don't understand why. So the way that my GP works is that you have to fill out an online clinic form with all of your symptoms. And in this form, I was going like, I am so depressed. I can't really get out of bed. I can't do anything. Some days I just don't want to eat. Like, I'm so depressed. It's a direct result from my period. I'm tired all of the time. Like, I had to leave my year abroad. I'm so unwell. And they triaged it as general. And at this point, this was like taking over my whole life. So I called the Endometriosis UK support line. Like, I just wanted someone to talk to. I felt like I was burdening my boyfriend, felt like I was burdening everyone, to be honest, because I was just crying all of the time. No one understood how I felt like this was ruining my life, and the doctors didn't even care. And I didn't want to keep going to my friends about that because, as sympathetic as they could be, they didn't understand. And I just felt like I was weighing them down with all this negativity. And I spoke to the endometriosis support line, and it was so validating to hear someone say, this isn't good, like, something is wrong. Because I've had all of these doctors telling me that, like, oh, just like try doubling up on the pill. Yeah, maybe just like we can't give you an appointment. Yeah, we'll give you a phone appointment in a week. Yeah, it's 3 weeks for an appointment. Is that all right? It was so validating to hear someone say, like, this is urgent, this needs sorting out. So they told me to call 111. So I called 111 and they organised a call back for me. I ended up getting an appointment at the GP for the next day, which I was so grateful for. I would definitely recommend going through 111 if you're having menstrual problems, because they will get an appointment sorted for you. Whereas the GP was telling me to wait 3 weeks. It's insane. So I ended up having an appointment for the 5th of November. So 2 days after I tried to get a GP appointment. In the meantime, I got a letter saying that my urgent ultrasound had been cancelled because there were no doctors available, and it had been rescheduled for the 31st of January. Oh my God. I called the doctor and they said that they don't sort it and I needed to call the hospital. So I called the hospital. They said they don't sort it. I need to call the ultrasound hub. So I called the ultrasound hub and they said that my doctor hadn't put through an urgent request. So I called the GP. The GP says that they only give urgent requests to cancer patients, which is actually a lie. It's a complete lie. And I cannot tell you how long this took. It is so exhausting. The ultrasound hub, I had to ring 7 times because they don't have a waiting they don't have a waiting thing. Like, they don't put you on hold. You just call, no one answers, it hangs up. I had to call 7 times. The GP is one of those ones where it takes about 4 minutes just to get through to reception, because you have to click 1 for reception. Is your question about appointments? Click 2. And it just takes forever. And then you're on hold forever as well. And then as soon as it's like, okay, yeah, I'll call them and then I'll call you back, you've got to go through that process again. When I had my doctor's appointment on the 5th, I had a lady who I had actually seen before really, really pushed the Mirena coil. And she did the same this time. And when she pushed the Mirena coil before, she actually booked me in to get it done. And I said that I didn't want it. Like, I ended up cancelling the appointment because I didn't want it, and I realised I didn't want it, and I realised that I had just been pushed into it as if it was my only option. And it's just not. So I had this doctor again. I was so tired of feeling like no one was listening to me. Like my whole life has been taken over and none of the doctors are listening to me. No one thinks that this is urgent. No one thinks that this needs treatment, apart from me, apparently. And this lady was just pushing the Mirena coil so badly, and I just started crying because I'm crying all the time anyway. There was literally no other option. Like, I'm so frustrated because I didn't want the coil. Like, that isn't what I wanted. I wanted you to stop my bleeding, and I wanted a referral to a specialist. But instead, I left with another appointment to get the Mirena coil fitted. Luckily, she actually chased up my urgent referral and put one through, even though the receptionist had said that they're only for cancer patients. It's a lie. Like, why would you lie to me? Even though I had an urgent referral, there was no urgent waiting list. They just give you cancellations. I was so lucky. I'm starting a job next week, and they called me a couple days ago and said, we have an appointment tomorrow, do you want it? And I said yes, and I took it and I went, and it was the same as before, except this time I had a really nice lady. I feel like having a doctor or a nurse who is actually open to finding something and who believes in women's menstrual problems and who cares about menstrual health makes such a difference, because you could tell that she was doing this properly and she was actually looking for stuff. She wasn't thinking, fucking hell, why have they sent another endometriosis patient here? She told me that it looked like there was adenomyosis there, which I have never really looked into. And from my understanding of it, it's when tissue from the uterus grows into the wall of the uterus. Honestly, that means nothing to me, to be honest. Like, I don't fully understand that, but it ain't good. Something's growing where it shouldn't be growing. Also, one thing that I want to point out is that the cancellation I got given was for my nearest appointment was a £50 one-way taxi away, and there was no public transport to get there. In this appointment, I spoke to the nurse who said that I had an appointment booked in on the 21st where I could talk to the doctor about the results of my scan. I thought, oh God, that's actually still kind of long away, because I ended up having the scan on like the 9th or something. So I called the GP again and I asked if I could move that call sooner. Bearing in mind, I have called the GP about 5 times trying to get an earlier appointment than the 21st before I got the 111 appointment, and I kept getting told, no, you have an appointment on the 21st, like, you're just going to have to wait for that appointment, like, you've been triaged as general, you're just going to have to wait for that appointment. And I called the GP to ask if I could move this appointment from the 21st forward, because it was literally just a check of the results, and they said, what appointment on the 21st? And I said, the one that you've been making me wait for this entire time. And they said, you don't have an appointment on the 21st. What? What do you mean? They said, you don't have an appointment on the 21st. We don't have a log of the cancellation. I can offer you one on the 27th. And I said, that is, like, not good enough. Like, I called to move it forward and I've pushed it back by 6 days. Like, what? And they said that there was nothing they could do. They were sorry for the miscommunication and there was no record of any appointment. And I said, but your colleagues have literally told me that I'm not allowed to get another appointment because I have this appointment on the 21st. And they're like, well, there's nothing on the system. Oh my God, stop. It's so exhausting. And it's like a brick wall. It's not like I can be like, well, that's actually not good enough. Like, they just go fuck off. I ended up calling back and forth, trying to figure out, like, I'm not taking this appointment on the 27th. Like, I will file a complaint because I am so tired of being ignored. And now you've cancelled an appointment without even telling me, and you've pushed it back by 6 days. Like, that is not acceptable, to be honest. Like, that is not acceptable. And they said, okay, what we'll do is, and this took hours, like, it genuinely took hours before they said, oh, we didn't realise that you had a Mirena coil fitting on the Friday. We can just go over the results there. I wasted so much time on the phone and it's so upsetting, it's so draining. Every time I have to talk to the doctor, every time it feels like they don't listen to me. Like, it's horrible. I wasted so much time talking to them just for them to tell me that they could have done that all along. I had my Mirena coil fitted yesterday, which was so fucking painful, to be honest. So painful. Luckily, it's been luckily after 24 hours, I had basically no pain. But when it was inserted, I was in so much pain that I thought I was going to throw up. I'm going to do a whole separate video on it, maybe in a month or two, once I've had enough time to figure out how it's actually doing. Right now, I am unemployed. Like, I'm starting my new job on Monday, where I'm going to be working 40 hours a week. There is just no way that I could have done any of this working. There is no way that I could have done any of this while I was working. Like, when they give you a telephone appointment, they'll call anywhere between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. Like, what am I supposed to do if I'm at work? It's just sad, because I just think that I literally wouldn't. There's so many women out there who can't do this. I'm so grateful to be in the position where I wasn't working for so long and I could sort it out. I don't understand how you could do all this with a full-time job. I'm hoping that this Marina sits well. I'm hoping that it stops my cramps, my bleeding. Honestly, what I want more than anything is a referral to a specialist. So badly, I want a laparoscopy, and I want them to tell me if I have endometriosis. I want them to tell me if I have adenomyosis. I want someone to sit down and look me in the eyes after 5 years and say, you were right, the pain that you feel is valid, it is there, and there's something causing that, and we found out what it is. Because I am so sick of getting given medicine for stuff when they don't even know what's wrong. I'm so sick of being given hormones for issues that they refuse to even acknowledge and look into and research into. And I'm so tired of doctors not realising how bad it is and how life-affecting it is. It's exhausting. My long-term goal is to be able to live a life without medication. I want to be able to live a healthy life without pain, without a Mirena, without the pill, without progesterone injections, without heavy painkillers, without tranexamic acid, without all of these tablets. I hope that people's main takeaway from this is the importance of being listened to. Never stop believing that you know your body, because you do. I get angry because if I had been listened to and helped when I first went to the doctor, I could still be living in Amsterdam right now. I wouldn't have had to take a year out of university. That is everything for today. It's a different kind of video, but I hope that it helps people. Thank you for watching. Bye.